they should be canceled, or these teenagers should be held accountable because their behavior was like this and they're displaying this behavior. Whereas other people are like, that's just what teenagers do. Like, why do we care? I was way worse as a teenager. Hey there. Yes, I'm in the same position that I was in my last video when I told you that meant this is going to be a serious video. But I'm actually, after doing that video, I had an idea that I might want to try a new format every once in a while. And that is because I often find that with certain things going on in the YouTube world, especially YouTube drama, I often find that I have some surface level thoughts on what's going on, but nothing too deep and analytical. Whereas my videos tend to dive pretty deep and be pretty analytical. But I still have opinions on some of those lighter matters. And so I figured, let's find an easier way where it's not such a huge production for me. It's just you and me on my couch talking about something that is not going to matter in 2 months. And so what inspired this decision, at least in this instance, it was the situation surrounding the D'Amelios, Charli and Dixie D'Amelio, and then also kind of the involvement of James Charles and Trisha Paytas in all of that mess. So if you've been living under a rock, Charli and Dixie D'Amelio are two wildly famous TikTokers. In fact, Charli is either on track to hit or has already hit 100 million followers on TikTok, which would be a first for the platform. And that will be happening or happened or is happening around about a year after she hit her first million. So recently, I don't know if it was a first episode, but the D'Amelio family, Charli Dixie and their two parents, always gotta steal a show, huh, bud? Let's do this. It's gonna be our show, yours and mine. You wanna get comfy? So the D'Amelios have this show where they eat dinner in their mansion, cooked by a professional, world-renowned chef, and they invite a celebrity over to have dinner with them. So in this most recent episode, it was almost like a bunch of small things just went wrong and overall kind of created a shitstorm for the show and for really everyone involved. Though, like I said, I don't think it's going to matter in a couple months. So the celebrity that the D'Amelios brought on was James Charles. I believe it was a surprise to the family and, put together by the producers. And the dish that was prepared by their personal chef contained mussels, which incited kind of a visceral reaction in Dixie, as she is characterized as kind of a picky eater, a finicky eater. No. As she puts it, she throws up all the time. Just throws up all the time. Anything will make her gag. Just the thought of something, the smell of something,
I throw up a lot. I can throw up at the smell, the thought, or the taste of anything.
Constantly throwing up. I'm only laughing because, the way that's said, I hope cannot be true. How is it that I thought to show you this clip of Dixie talking about throwing up, but I completely failed to even talk about all of her obnoxious behavior during this dinner? World's most professional YouTuber here, so I'll go ahead and just roll all the footage in question here.
You need to be understanding deal terms, because a lot of people don't, but unfortunately that's how a lot of influencers... What is everyone laughing at?
What is this?
Oh my god.
It's a mushroom.
No, it's not. That's a snail.
Oh my god.
It is a snail.
Oh!
It's a snail. It's the caracol. It's classic in paella, and it's actually a omen of good luck and fortune.
I just touched its liver. Oh my god. Liver? There's a... It's...
Sometimes happens when... Oh god.
So dramatic.
Don't be so dramatic.
Yeah, excuse yourself.
Is she being real? Or is she being dramatic? Oh, she actually threw up. Ew.
Classic Dixie.
Do we have any dino nuggets?
Because I find that there could be someone that has a better lawyer, especially in the criminal side, gets out of a certain situation, and the one that doesn't have a good lawyer.
And in that same episode, Charli made a comment to James about how she's kind of excited about her growth and soon to be hitting 100 million followers on TikTok, but she made a remark saying something along the lines of, that would be really cool, or I wish I could hit 100 million a year after I hit 1 million. Like, that would be neat.
Because imagine if I hit 100 mil a year after hitting a mil.
And James made kind of a cutting little quip at her. I don't think it was meant to be too mean, but he said something along the lines of,
Was the 95 not enough for you?
Well, I was just like saying like even numbers.
Well,
what is the 95 not enough for you? So from this incident with Dixie and the snail in her food, as well as Charli making the remark about followers and kind of how some people have characterized it, just treating followers as if they're just numbers. That sparked a lot of backlash, and really there were kind of, what I noticed, two kind of camps of criticism. There was criticism at the D'Amelio family, specifically Charli and Dixie, saying that they were acting bratty, that this is not a good look, that in fact they seemed very ungrateful, and that the show itself turned out to be pretty tone deaf considering how privileged these girls in this family is. And then on top of that, for them to seem so ungrateful for what they have. The other camp was kind of the camp criticizing the first camp, saying that like, hey, these are just teenagers being teenagers. This is really not a big deal. But as a side note, and this doesn't just go for the D'Amelio family, this is for like almost every LA YouTuber. Does COVID just not exist in LA? Because last I checked, the cases were pretty strong there, but LA YouTubers seem to be going on like business as usual, like it's 2019. So, you know, the idea of this family coming together when I don't think they lived together, and then bringing in new people, including producers and chefs, like, you're TikTok stars, can you not do TikTok dances at least until we're kind of closer to the end of lockdown and a vaccine? I digress. I did find it funny, and I didn't really hear anybody, I don't think, point this out, but I think it's funny that this whole drama centers around kind of the ungratefulness and kind of entitledness of Charli and Dixie D'Amelio. But I believe it was their mother who, when James Charles came out and kind of revealed himself as, you know, the dinner guest, the celebrity dinner guest, she kind of said something about like, I thought we were going to get a real celebrity, or I thought somebody more famous was going to come out, or something like that. And I just...
Maya Rudolph. I think she would be awesome to have dinner with. Jessica Alba would be a good one. Yeah, we were afraid it would be someone big, famous, but we didn't know who they were.
Got it.
Like, even though I think James Charles' ego is through the roof, I just couldn't imagine saying that to anybody and that being appropriate. So, if anybody's gonna get a strike, I think the mom should get at least like half. But before I get into my thoughts on Charli and Dixie, I kind of want to talk about how James and Trisha got into it over this. So, as you may know, Trisha Paytas, I've been saying Trisha, I don't know if I've said her full name. Trisha Paytas has kind of made herself the resident drama channel of TikTok.
Let's talk about problematic TikTokers, starting with Nikita Dragon. Always throwing shade at people. Most recently, Daisy Keech for dating her ex. Talking about Tony Lopez, who has admitted to sexting minors. So let's talk about the actual predator that Nikita Dragon is friends with, support, bestest friends. He's doing great. This is Tony Lopez.
And she's commented, I don't know, I don't spend a lot of time on TikTok, but I know that she has a lot to say too about YouTubers and the YouTube space. And I am still trying to figure out how I feel about that, because it's complicated. Because on the one hand, Trisha would know. And what I mean by that is that she not only is in these spaces, YouTube and TikTok and kind of the LA online entertainment scene as it is, she's there. So she knows more about these people than we do, than me as just your teeny tiny little commentary channel would know. But also, these are her peers, so she knows these people. So I think that serves two conflicting purposes. I think that makes this content coming from Trisha, on one hand, more interesting, more salacious, and on the other hand, maybe a conflict of interest, maybe inappropriate, because if I talk about James Charles and, give criticism, or even to Charli and Dixie, whoever, that's criticism. That's commentary. But for Trisha, who, like I said, these are her peers, to offer criticism to these people, it comes across as shade. And I think that's why she's kind of pissing off certain influencers here and there. That said, I'm not totally writing off this idea. Some of the things she calls people out for, I'm living for, and she's been spot on about some people that we've laughed off in the first place. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes. We'll see how much trouble it gets her in. We'll see if she maybe calms down altogether and this just becomes her new thing. And who knows what the trajectory of Trisha Paytas' career looks like, but that's not what this is about. This is about Trisha Paytas offering those criticisms to Dixie and Charli that I just gave. You're acting bratty. You seem very ungrateful. This is not a good look for you. And I'm not sure if it was in the original videos, but she does hold a very strong viewpoint about adult YouTubers or influencers or content creators befriending and spending a lot of time with minors.
Like, I had issues when I was a kid, obviously, with adults, young adults that fucked me up, and molested me, and not just straight guys, okay, and whatever. So, and not just males. So I have a really deep-rooted sense of trauma from this, and 98% of adults probably aren't doing weird shit.
Dude, you don't need to quantify that. You shouldn't leave your young daughter alone with three adults.
Of course. Okay, yeah. But I want people to know why I'm so adamant about this, because it fucked me up in such a way that I can't even explain. So it felt weird.
And I think people are pretty split on how they feel about these situations. I've heard some people saying, well, he's a gay man and Charli is a girl, so there's not a danger posed, which I think is a little bit flimsy. On the other hand, James Charles did say that he has befriended the D'Amelio family as a whole and wanted to offer his advice and his guidance as a mentor, since he also blew up at 16.
Actually, make that cover boy. Makeup artist James Charles is the first male face of CoverGirl in the company's nearly 60-year history.
So I get where he's coming from, but there are a few caveats. I do understand where Trisha's coming from. She's been pretty vocal about this. I know some people say that they have little respect for her disdain over the Brandon Calvillo situation, though from what she's told us, she was very vocal within her friend group, within the vlog squad, about being uncomfortable with Brandon Calvillo dating a 17-year-old when he was 23, 24. So Trisha has always held a pretty strong viewpoint about adults spending time with children. She talked about how she did do a collaboration with JoJo Siwa, and when she did, her parents were there, which I think is totally fine. But then I think she said that either her parents left, or the next time that they went to do a collaboration, it was just her, Jason Nash, and David Dobrik, and then of course JoJo Siwa there in her home, and the parents were just gone. And she said she felt so uncomfortable. She did not go back. She ceased doing these collaborations for the reason that she feels it's inappropriate for her to be spending time with a minor, especially with their parents gone.
So, but why can't you give James the benefit of the doubt? Because you did that.
I did it once. He's best friends, hanging out with this girl multiple times, except alone. And to me, and like I said, chances are there's nothing like that happening, but it's inappropriate. It's to me, hanging out with being best friends, like you said, to mentor or even having a video, let's say we have a minor on our podcast or whatever, and their parents are here, whatever. But to hang out with them consistently, either whether it's using them for views or whatever, it's just gross to me. 21.
And she's 16? Wow, that's a pretty big age gap.
And while Trisha Paytas' sexual orientation is totally up in the air, nobody's making the argument that she's into this, that, or the other, so JoJo Siwa is not like a weird combination, because I don't think that matters when it comes to minors. And I do think that's important, and I do agree there, although I know that there are some situations where it's obvious that people are not creating some sort of predatory arrangement. I have one fan that I know of that is a child, but I do speak to that fan, and her mother knows all of our conversations that we have, and I speak to her mother, and I'm just as connected with her on social media. However, on the Girlmance podcast, Amber and I interviewed Justin Payne, who has a fantastic channel. I would highly recommend checking it out, subscribing. He is essentially a vigilante pedophile hunter. That's kind of what he goes by across the internet. And we talked to him about, what are your thoughts on influencers talking to their young fans, their underage fans? And of course, we're talking about influencers, but he was really driving home the point that adults and children don't need to be having private conversations, basically. So I felt a little bit bad about my friend there, though I do think that for me, I am maintaining myself with integrity. But it just goes to show that people have differing opinions across this spectrum, and I don't necessarily think there's any one right or wrong answer. It's really a matter of how much are we looking out for children, how much danger are we putting them in, and how transparent are we being about these relationships we have with them. That said, after Trisha Paytas commented on James's inappropriate relationship with Charli, that's how she sees it. As he is 21, she is 16. That's a pretty big age gap, and he is very much an adult at this point. James Charles went on a very fast rant. Like, he spoke faster than Trisha.
To insinuate that the relationship between Charli and I is anything other than just a friendship is absolutely disgusting. I don't need Charli, and Charli does not need me. I became friends with the D'Amelio family as a whole very, very early on because this is all very, very new to them, and I wanted to be a friend and a mentor in any way that I possibly could. And Charli and I, despite not being the same age, had one thing in common, which was coming to the spotlight at a very, very young age.
So part of me just wants to see these two just continue to go at it in some weird way, just to see if I can even keep up with how fast they talk.
With hundreds of spiders, all the babies were in there. Let's see, it's a goose geese, school of fish. What is a group of spiders called? Oh, man, I remember a whole circle of spiders. That'd be the scariest thing ever. Unless you're camping out in the woods, or not even camping, or even in the woods, you're sleeping in your backyard.
But one of the things that James Charles kind of gave pushback on was the notion that, I guess Trisha implied or stated that Charli and James need each other. And James seemed to take offense to that, or just straight out argued that's absolutely not the case. She doesn't need me, I need her. I befriended the family just to act as a mentor. That was his message. And it's in fact in a tweet that he posted about the whole situation at the very end, he did say something about people in their 30s really trying to people in their 30s, and something about young influencers. And he said, feels familiar, which was meant to imply, as the audience takes it, that this was reminiscent of his time with Tati Westbrook and or Jeffree Star. Although those people took him on as his mentors. So I really don't understand what the point is there. But moving along, I do think that there are some holes in his argument about not needing Charli because, and I've befriended the family as a whole, because we've seen that James has put Charli D'Amelio at the front and center of his sister's merch campaign photo shoot. And it makes sense. She is the most popular person on TikTok, and arguably the most popular person among teenagers, the most popular influencer among teenagers. So there's a lot to be gained for James Charles. So to say that he's not using her, I don't think is accurate. He's collaborating with her, and I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but be honest. Don't paint yourself out to be just a mentor, and don't paint it out to be that you are just as invested in the entire family as you are in Charli, or that you're just there to help her if she's clearly helping you. So those are my thoughts on James and Trisha for now. So back to Charli and Dixie, I already talked about kind of the structure of the show and what happened and these different camps of criticism, what people are saying, and people are bickering over they should be canceled, or these teenagers should be held accountable because their behavior was like this and they're displaying this behavior. Whereas other people are like, that's just what teenagers do. Like, why do we care? I was way worse as a teenager.
This is a super quick reminder to like this video and subscribe to my channel if that's something you want to do. If that's not something you want to do, just don't. I'll shut up and start talking now.
Well, that's you. Maybe that's not everybody. But I think the fundamental difference between two very important things we have not really highlighted is there's a difference between a call for cancellation and a criticism that is made as sort of a warning for what kind of impact this may have on your platform and or your brand. I think it's really important to learn the difference between the two, because oftentimes I will give criticism and some people will be like, yeah, but so-and-so shouldn't be canceled over that. And it's like, no, they don't need to be canceled. Or some people will say, well, if you don't like it, then you don't need to watch it. And it's like, well, that's fine too. I don't need to watch it. But if I am noticing certain behaviors in creators that I like, that I think are turning me off and may turn others off, then it may be worth pointing out as a criticism, as a feedback, a legitimately constructive feedback to let them know, hey, this thing is going to impact, or it is actively impacting your brand. And I think that when it comes to Dixie and Charli D'Amelio, who are teenagers on TikTok, a massive amount of influence on young people, on children and other teenagers who are children, I think it is important that they keep in mind the sort of message they're putting out and the sort of behavior they're displaying. So I don't think it's enough just to be like, they're just being bratty teenagers. We all were. Well, were you an influencer at that time? Did you have 100 million eyes on you? Did you have people scrutinizing your every move and also, more importantly, learning how to behave from the way you behaved? Probably not. Yes, that's a huge responsibility. It's massive, and I can't imagine the kind of pressure that is. But the point is that they are assuming these roles, and so it is important to know what that means. I don't know if perhaps James Charles is mentoring them in this sort of thing, but I don't think bratty behavior is just what teenagers do is sufficient when we're talking about influencers. It certainly is not sufficient when we're talking about people like Tana Mojo, which, like, yes, I understand. She's like a total train wreck.
Listen, we don't care. Sorry.
On another level, but the point is that just because people are young doesn't mean we should just let them get away with acting one way or another if they're influencing our youth. Now, what do I think of each of these situations independently? Flat out, Charli should not have lost any followers. I really don't think that she did anything wrong. I don't think that she came across as ungrateful in this moment where she talked about how cool it would be to hit 100 million a year after hitting 1 million. If we are to paint that out as Charli D'Amelio reducing all of her followers to just a number, then we would have to say that about every single content creator that celebrates a milestone. We should do away with YouTube plaques that celebrate 100K, 1 million, 10 million, etc. But that's not realistic. Those things are important. They are not the most important thing, but they are a measure of success and are kind of one of those hard and fast analytics and metrics that we can look at that show the hard work that we put into our work coming back to us. I don't know about you, not everybody's like this, but I am very numbers driven. I love to see analytics and I have 1 million trackers. And so for me, my goals are very numbers oriented.
Which reminds me, this is a super lofty goal, but I think it would be really cool to hit 50K around the time I celebrate my 1-year anniversary here on YouTube. So if you're not subscribed to my channel and you've been enjoying the content that you have seen, if you wouldn't mind hitting the subscribe button, I would appreciate that so much. If not, no worries. It's your life. It's your subscription box. You owe me nothing. I owe you guys everything. So thank you.
But On the other hand, I have this very deep emotional connection with my platform, and those two things don't diminish each other's value. And I don't think that was what Charli was getting at all here. And for what it's worth, it's not just content creators that celebrate milestones. It's any business owner, or even really just anybody who has a job or any sort of passion that has any sort of milestones. Those can sometimes be numerical and not necessarily reflective of the individuals that are buying into your product or your brand. As for Dixie, while I don't know if the whole picky eater thing is a huge deal, I will say that this situation rubbed me wrong. And it did because I myself am a very picky eater. I don't know if I've made that known to my platform, but yes, I am one of those people that you hate when we go out to restaurants. I am a very finicky eater. There's a lot that weirds me out in terms of trying foods, especially new foods, and I get very uncomfortable in many situations when it comes to having dinner, especially with people that are new or somebody new is cooking. I'll be real. I would be weirded out and grossed out by having a snail in my food. Absolutely. However, I have learned to maintain a certain level of poise and to hide that discomfort in the name of politeness, because somebody did prepare that for you. And even if the cook is not around, I just think it's bad form to be like, ew! I mean, unless you're in a super, super casual setting. I know I've done it. But I never would like gawk at, gag at, whatever, a food that was prepared for me. I might be stuck in a weird predicament, but I will do my damnedest to find ways to excuse myself from eating that food. It might mean that I just tell the cook very politely that I'm just very weird about food and this is not something I've ever tried, so I'm a little hesitant and I'm very sorry. Or if it comes down to something so severe as I'm gonna throw up, there's a way to politely excuse yourself from the table and book it to a restroom and not have people watch you puking in your yard.
Is she being real? Or is she being dramatic? Oh, she actually threw up. Ew.
Are you kidding me? These people are multimillionaires. It's possible that it was that dire of an emergency, but I just find it hard to believe because the moment that she said, "What is this? It's a snail," she could have found a bathroom. I'm sure they have a bunch in that house. And I've seen a lot of support for Dixie in this situation by saying, well, the chef himself said, and the producer said that it was all kind of a gag, that they were all just kind of like trying to get at Dixie because the cook or the chef and the producer, or one of the producers, were interviewed by the Hollywood Fix.
Yo, hey, Tommy, what's up, bro? How's it going, man? What's up, bro? What is that, man? Are you the chef from the infamous D'Amelio cooking episode?
That's right.
It was Aaron, right?
Yep.
Man, oh my God, this is so crazy.
The Hollywood Fix just happened to run into these two men out on the street. 100%, I never say 100% because I don't know for sure, but 100% I believe that this was arranged for the Hollywood Fix to run into the chef and the producer.
Oh my God, this is so crazy.
To do damage control, to just be like, no, this was all part of the plan. We wanted to give her this reaction. Well, if that's the case, then it was executed very poorly. And actually, Trisha said this, but I truly believe it too. If that's the case, then you need to get a better team to the D'Amelios, because that just made Dixie look bad and did not really play on the whole, like, we're going to prank her type of thing that has been done in so many shows. So I'm sorry, I don't buy it. The other thing too is, is anybody else weirded out by how Dixie says that she throws up all the time?
I throw up a lot. I could throw up at the smell, the thought, or the taste of anything.
I don't think that I would do that intentionally to someone. And I don't mean like in an eating disorder way. It almost sounds like a medical condition. So if the response is going to be, oh, we knew she was going to throw up, I don't think that I would do that intentionally to someone. That it's almost like going like, oh yeah, this person's lactose intolerant. So like, you know, we loaded up his meal with milk. He didn't know. Such a funny gag. Like if somebody's having a visceral, physical, bodily reaction to a food that is harmful to a person's health, then that's not a funny gag. And you can't say that you didn't know it would go that far, because she didn't say I like gag at a lot of things or I get grossed out. She said I throw up all the time. Like, that's still weird to me. So in terms of the two girls, Dixie and Charli's responses to all of the backlash, I felt that the two girls handled the situation in vastly different ways. I did see a video where Dixie kind of went to bat for her family and for herself in this situation.
Hey guys, if you are here to comment hate like this, maybe hold on 1 second and know the full story.
But really all I gathered from that was that she was kind of combative, pretty defensive. And I think that if your audience has a problem with your behavior, it's important to be able to validate that feeling that they're getting from your behavior. And if you just can't find it in you to validate how your audience is feeling, then I think it's best not to address it at all. I don't think that's the best course of action. I think honestly, like, it's better to fake it for the sake of making your viewers feel heard. But if you are just going to come online and just be like, no, you didn't get me. If you're going to do you and people don't get it, and then maybe it's time to just continue making your content, continue being the way you're going to be, and maybe your audience will shape up to be something more appropriate for your brand. Or you lose your platform and it's just because you were too stubborn to take criticism and feedback and listen to your audience. So I wasn't a fan of Dixie's response, but then I certainly was not a fan of her response to Trisha by doing a TikTok dance to a 10-year-old clip of Trisha rapping the N-word.
The police coming straight from the underground. A young got a bad cause I'm brown and not the other color, so police think they have the authority to kill a minority. But fuck that shit.
And I don't think anybody is denying whether you're a Trisha fan, a Trisha anti-fan, or just kind of somewhere in between. I think everybody agrees that that clip was very bad. And I think Trisha herself admits that it's very bad. And that's why she had to apologize for it and continually has to apologize for it, as YouTubers often have to do when, you know, their scandals kind of start to get dredged up every now and then. And the point is, if Trisha had to apologize for this thing, then that means that it was hurtful to a group of people. And in this case, it was hurtful to a lot of people. So to get at Trisha just to be petty by dancing to her rapping the N-word, it's almost just as bad, because you're dredging this up, this painful thing, this bad thing. The word is there. The words are there. And it's 10 years later. Like, we know better. Did we not just experience a resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement? And by the way, Dixie, we're still in it. Like, we're not getting out of the Black Lives Matter movement in our lifetime. Just as a side note. That was not even tone deaf. That was just straight up stupid. I hated that. I hated that so much. And those two things together have been like really the biggest, well, those two things plus the whole like finicky eater throwing up at a snail thing really are the only impression that I've gotten of Dixie so far. And so far, I'm not a fan. I don't like the girl based on what I've seen. Did she do anything monstrously awful and terrible? No, but she did enough to make me not like her. So that only kind of goes to prove my point. I don't necessarily think that she needs to be canceled, but she's not going to get my views. And I'm not the only person who this is the case for, I'm sure. Charli, on the other hand, I did see a video, her response where she was crying. She was crying about death threats that she'd received. And I'm sure, I'm not sure if she mentioned it, but I'm sure it had to do a lot with all the followers she was losing. And she did mention Trisha Paytas. I wonder if she was truly hurt by the things that Trisha Paytas was saying, or if kind of like James was feeding into that. I'm not trying to stick up for Trisha in this situation. I'm just wondering how much their beef got in the way of Charli and Dixie's experience with this. But either way, Charli was crying on camera, which I don't have a problem with. I believe in showing your emotions on camera in these videos. I don't believe in going into complete hysterics, especially if you're like making an apology for something. But I don't think Charli had anything to apologize for. She really kind of just went online to say, like, guys, like, please stop. Please stop with the over-the-top things like sending death threats. And also, by the way, Trisha Paytas, you've said some really mean things about me. You've said that I'm basic. You've said that I'm boring and other things that are hurtful. And she said something like, you've got enough problems in your life. Please don't worry about mine.
Please stop talking about me. You're not a very nice person.
And I think that whether James egged that on or not, it was a really valid ask. And I think she did it perfectly. So many adults lack the ability to effectively communicate, especially to communicate emotions and to communicate directly. And Charli did both of those things. She showed that she was sad. She said it hurt her feelings, and she asked Trisha to stop. That is, in my opinion, a textbook perfect way to communicate that sentiment and that ask. And from what I understand, Trisha did stop, and she issued a full and seemingly genuine and validating apology to Charli.
For my part, I sincerely apologize for hurting your feelings or offending you in any capacity. Not my intention. I cannot imagine being 16 with the amount of eyes you have on you. I hope that you continue to grow, and I hope that you know that you are so worthy of life, and you are so worthy of love, and you are so worthy of what you had. Like I said, what you did was very minor. People just wanted you to take accountability. You did. And for my part, I'm sorry if I made you feel bad.
And I was satisfied with Trisha's apology, though it's not my apology to accept. So I'm curious as to how Charli handled it. But as far as I know, Trisha's not going to be ragging on Charli anytime soon. I thought that was in good form for Trisha. I thought that was mature for her. I thought that was mature for Charli. I thought that was not mature for Dixie. And no, in fact, I actually kind of like for fun listed out who I think were like the top players in this situation. And I put Charli at the top of my list. I think that she handled herself great. I don't think she did anything wrong in the first place. And, you know, I think she had to deal with the brunt of this situation, the worst of the consequences she didn't deserve. So she's my A-star player in this situation. I did believe that Trisha came in second in that I do think that when she is giving these criticisms on TikTok, she is pretty like calm and measured in how she does it. So whether or not she should be doing it, like I said, I don't know yet. I'm still trying to decide. But she's not like firing off the way she does at like Gabby Hanna on YouTube. And I was happy with the apology she gave to Charli. So when it comes to James, I just feel kind of like, because he fires off at the mouth and he says a lot of things that like make sense, you know, in the moment. But and I do think that is a tactic that some people use, like the super fast talkers that just like steamroll you with all these things that they say. And it's like, you can't even keep up with your own thoughts to even argue with them. And I do think that that's a tactic, whether it's conscious or not, but it's catty. It's kind of mean. And I don't necessarily believe him when he says that he and Charli don't need each other. They don't use each other. He's just a mentor to the family as a whole, etc. I think that he was a little less than truthful. Not that he was trying to blatantly lie, but I think he could have been a little more introspective about truly where he stands with this family. And James has also been known to say too much too soon to where he has to go back and retract those statements and apologize for those statements. So I do kind of wish that he would take a beat before speaking, because at the end of the day, while he is an adult and he is successful in all of those things, he still has a developing brain, which means that he really does need to learn how to step back from situations, calm down, and then return to them before firing off or, you know, before addressing a situation. And I think he's failing to do that here. And that's what kind of rubs me wrong here. this kind of is an example too, going back to Trisha as a drama channel on TikTok, kind of goes to show that peer-on-peer friction that wouldn't happen if James were dealing with a commentary channel or a drama channel, I would hope. But because it is a fellow YouTuber and then they have, you know, mutual friends, mutual ex-friends here and all that, it just makes everything complicated. So of course there was going to be some drama between the two of them. Dixie, ironically, even though she's 3 years older than her sister, I think has a lot more growing up to do than her sister does. I think that this episode showed that she's got a little bit of an ego, a little too much pride standing in the way of her really grasping all the implications of a situation and how to adequately address and apologize for them. I think that ego might need to be docked a little bit, but I mean, I do think there's room for improvement. I don't think that she, like I said, she shouldn't be canceled. Give it some time. I might like her one day. As for now, I just think, you know, she's definitely on the immature side, especially compared to her sister. And an honorable mention goes to Jeffree Star for his involvement in this, for his commentary on this, going off in a very terrifying way. And I don't want to say that because I know Jeffree Star wants to come across. I don't know. I feel very strongly that Jeffree Star wants to intimidate and he wants to scare people. And this too looks very immature, the way he chimed in.
I guess yesterday there was a bunch of drama with other people not involving me, but people still want to mention my name. First of all, I have no idea what happened. I don't give a what happened. I'm too busy worrying about me, myself, my family, and I don't care. I don't entertain it. So if you were friends with me and you're not anymore, keep my name out of your mouth.
And you can't tell whether he's really trying to intimidate James or Trisha. Hell, maybe even both of them. But it's just like everything he does. Like, yeah, that's great, dude. You've got money. In fact, you've got intimidation money. You've got hit money. But still, at the end of the day, you lack class and you're tacky as shit. And so for that, you get an honorable mention. A dishonorable mention is what I meant to say. So those are my quick thoughts. I think this video is probably still going to be like 30 minutes long. I apologize. I tried to make it quick anyway. So to you, the one person who's watching, who's not me, thank you for joining me with this new kind of format that I really hope works because it was pretty fun and pretty easy. And so I would love to do this and pump out more content for you guys that we all can enjoy and so that I can keep up with YouTube drama. I'm still trying to kind of catch up with everything. The next video you guys are going to see is my video that I made in response to Alex James's response to Gabby Hanna. So that one will be coming next. I'm excited to bring that to you, and I'd love to hear what you think about this. All right, thanks. Bye.